Congratulations. I didn't realize you're pregnant until our last meeting. Oh, yeah, it's a fun. It's a plan. It's like that. That's like the most. I know. It's
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 6th, 2025 meeting of the Joint City County Planning Committee. We're getting a little bit of a late start. My apologies. The time is now 9:40 a.m. And I would ask for a roll call, please.
Chair Jacobs.
Here.
Vice Chair Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Planning Commissioner Chagaris. Commissioner Lee. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
I'm here.
And Commissioner Burton.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to ask for an excused absence for Commissioner Stephen Valentine.
Moved. Second.
A move by City Council Member Caballero, seconded by Commissioner Burton. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is unanimously approved. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Oh, and I forgot, we also need an excused absence for Planning Commissioner Kim Cameron.
Second.
Okay, moved by City Council Member Caballero, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Middleton. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion is also approved unanimously. Any adjustments to the agenda today? Okay, hearing none.
I'm aware of, Chair Jacobs.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, announcements? Do we have any announcements? Okay.
I'm sorry. I have an announcement, not really an announcement, but a welcome. Our new deputy city manager is with us today. Gina Probst, right here. So yes, just wanted to recognize.
Thank you and welcome and congratulations to you. Approval of the minutes for the June 4th, 2025 meeting. Are there any revisions? If not, I would entertain a motion to
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Baker, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Middleton. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the minutes are unanimously approved. City and county manager priority items.
Good morning, everyone. The county does not have any priority items today.
Good morning, Ava Miles with the City Attorney's Office. I do not have any priority items. I do want to make a brief announcement. This will be my last meeting for a little while. I'll be going on parental leave, and City Attorney Kim Rayburg will be sitting in until I return. And she's present today.
Awesome, and congratulations. Evaluation, our next item is the Evaluation and Assessment Report, EAR. Introduction, Aaron Kane.
Good morning, everyone. Aaron Kane with the Planning and Development Department. I need to get used to introducing myself that way. Yep. Yeah. So for those of you who are veteran elected officials or members of this committee, this will look familiar. For those of you that have been elected in the last 4, maybe 6 years, this may be new to you. The Evaluation and Assessment Report is something that is called for in the UDO. It used to be something we did annually. It's now something we do biannually, where we look at the comprehensive plan, see how we're doing, make any adjustments that need to be made. It's essentially, as you went through the comprehensive plan update a couple of years ago, the 2-year update that was referred to many times during the development of that project. There we go. As I mentioned, it's mandated to be done every 2 years. This year, it's going to be a combination of the community planning department, community planning team led by Scott Whiteman and Kayla Seibel, and the growth management team, with all members of our team participating this time. Again, this has not been done since 2018. We put the EARs on pause as we were developing the new comprehensive plan. But now that it's done, we're ready to move forward with the first 2-year update. There we go. And this time we're proposing to do it in phases. This is because what we want to be able to do is provide you a more robust data assessment. And in order to do that, we want to be able to make sure that we can get 2 years of data on a variety of topics since the adoption of the comprehensive plan in October of 2023. But we also have some other things we'd like to go ahead and share with you as part of the EAR, including some updates of some policies as we have worked through about 1.5 years of implementation and application of those policies. So as it shows here at phase 1, we will present the community goals and objectives report card, and Kayla's going to talk about that in just a moment. We'll also propose some place time map changes based on changing conditions. If we have any adjustments we'd like to make to the urban growth boundary, we'll provide those, and also some edits to several types of policies. In phase 2, we'll have a more robust data-driven report on actions and analysis based on 2 years of the implementation of the comprehensive plan and a summary of community planning white papers that the community planning team has been working on. So I'll turn it over to Kayla to talk about the CGO.
Thank you. I'm Kayla Seibel, Senior Planner. So the report card is also done every 2 years. This is called for in our comprehensive plan. It's distinct from the EAR in that it measures broad data and trends rather than very planning specific information and technical updates. This is looking at big categories that are important to our community. You can see the list of 8 indicators on the screen there. We're trying to track the most meaningful data, and we see this as more of a public-facing document, trying to make the data as clear as possible and also set us up for better tracking in the future. So these are the 8 equity indicators, we call them in the comp plan. They're categories that reflect key issues, and they're primarily related to access. So access to housing, transportation, economic opportunities, and so on. When we can, we'll report the data that highlights inequities or privileges, and we'll primarily focus on the built environment. So we hope that this report card, which will be following the EAR, so we'll bring this to you in October, we're hoping this will inform how we're implementing the comp plan, if there are any changes or updates we need to make, and of course, how we're tracking the data. So because we do this every 2 years, we have opportunity to incorporate new data, better data, whatever you all find is useful. So like I said, we'll have a full report ready for you in October. Right now, it's an internal draft. And I think that's it for the report card. Here, Aaron. Yeah.
Thank you, Kayla. So to just give you a sense of the timeline we're looking at, we've already started work on phase 1. Our team, as well as community planning team, as Kayla mentioned, has already been putting together, they've been putting together the community goals and objectives report card. We've been working on policy language adjustments. We'll be bringing that to you in October for your review and also to the Planning Commission for its review. And our goal is to bring those to the elected boards in November. Phase 2 will start work in fall 2025 once we've had a chance to get 2 full years of data, probably around November, December. And our goal is to bring that to you then winter, maybe early spring of 2026. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Aaron. I wonder if you could kind of clarify on the memo that we received. There were several bullet points around phase 1, and I have to confess I was a little confused about saying that updates to the PTM and urban growth boundary. It said that staff is not including privately initiated requests. Okay. What only significant changes will prompt or recommend change? What happens when are you saying that only ones that have been approved will be included? Because sometimes there are privately initiated rezonings and things like that.
Oh, of course.
It's a little bit confusing for me.
Sure. So all I meant by that was within the process of the EAR, that may in and of itself amend the place type map. We're not taking any privately requested, so we may have a landowner who's outside the UGB who wants to be inside the UGB. We're not going to accept that and
Okay,
process that as part of the EAR. If they want
Okay.
to make a rezoning or an annexation request and do it that way, they have every right to do
Okay.
that. But we're not we're not taking any of those to incorporate into the EAR.
okay. And then you went on to explain that in the third bullet point, that there's going to be 3 types of policies
Mhm.
that are analyzed. D for development, annexation policies, place type policies. Could you talk a little bit more about those policies or what the thoughts are about that?
Sure. So the D policies there, as in the development of the comprehensive plan, several policies, about 40 or so, were identified as those directly related to development. And we used those as a guide when we developed our first, as you've seen, especially on the members of the city council, as you've seen rezoning cases come through, you'll see that we do a comprehensive plan consistency review. And we went through the D policies and identified those that we felt were most applicable to a rezoning or to a rezoning case. We've now been doing that for a year and a half. We've learned some lessons from our first cut. And so we've looked at all of the D policies to see, well, maybe some of them shouldn't be incorporated in our review anymore. We're not recommending anything be removed from the comprehensive plan. Let me be clear about that. We're not recommending that. It's more about looking at how we present our analysis in any rezoning cases and taking a new look at that based on our experience over the last year and a half or so and seeing if there's a way we can do it better. Also looking at the 8 or 9 D policies that we did not include in our review when we first looked at these a year and a half ago and seeing if maybe some of those should be put back in. We're also looking at some recommended policy language changes just to make things, clarify or adjust, make it more clear for our work.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for this. With the report card piece, and can y'all pull it back up? Sorry. With the report
Yeah.
card, and can you pull the
Yeah.
presentation back up so I make sure that I think it was the goals, the big,
Oh. Yeah.
thank you.
There you go. Yep.
What is the information that you're going to pull from other data sources to inform this?
Yeah, so let me bring up what I have here. So we have, of course, census data. We have a lot of data from the community health assessment, the Durham County Community Health Assessment. They've pulled many of these topics already together. And let's see, there's some other sources we have around the city. It's going to be local data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we make sure to pull information from the 2055 MTP?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
and
definitely.
then, can we also, oh gosh, and I'm gonna name it wrong, like the
Okay.
preferred transit option, what are they calling it, Wendy? We're gonna get it.
Yeah,
this-
Yeah, the
Right.
preferred.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, just to, I know y'all are,
preferred scenario.
thank you,
whatever.
preferred scenario.
Yeah,
So that we can, it'll affect a lot of this, but there's just really important population.
Yes.
Data in
Yeah,
there. Okay,
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
great question. Anyone else have a question? Yes. go ahead.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. Just curious about the access to daily needs. I think that's a really important category, particularly around land use and accessibility. I'm curious if you have a couple examples of the kind of metrics that are in that bucket.
Yes. Okay, bring it up here. We just have an internal draft right now. So that one is the trickiest one. So it's a huge category. But we have some of the data we're presenting and trying to measure is food insecurity, access to grocery stores, walkability to grocery stores, walkability or access to banks. Parks, of course, there's a 10-minute walk shed that the Parks and Rec Department showed in their plan. We're pulling that. Computer and internet use, childcare, schools, and then we're going to show a heat map showing proximity of co-location of these things, and then kind of pinpoint where the gaps are. It's not going to be a perfect like network analysis where you can draw a line where somebody can walk to these things quite yet, but it's a starting point for the data that we have.
Awesome. That's exactly what I was looking
Great.
for. Yeah, and my suggestion was going to be maybe looking at like the percent, something measurable, like the percentage of residents living within a 5-minute or a 10-minute walk to some of the issues that you brought up, grocery stores, parks, childcare, and schools, I think are key ones. And then we can, sort of track that 2 years from now. We can look at how that's changed. So that's great. Thank you very much.
It would be great if you could is it possible for you to send us more information just for each of those 8 areas?
Sure.
What are the measures you're thinking about using? Because just people may have some feedback or suggestions.
Yes, definitely. And when we share this in October, the report card, right now it's just going through an internal draft.
Okay.
There will be opportunity to make changes.
Okay, so when it'll come back in October
Yes.
with that? Okay, fantastic. And just noting that the last time we did this was 2018. So we are definitely due for, and this will be done very differently. It's very exciting the way that, that we're going to be holding ourselves accountable and seeing how we're doing. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this after 7 years. I want to also acknowledge that Commissioner Dr. Mike Lee is here for the attendance. Any other questions for anyone? Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have the interlocal cooperative, the Historic Preservation Commission interlocal cooperative agreement. Carla Rosenberg.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carla Rosenberg with Planning and Development, and I bring before you the Historic Preservation Commission's interlocal cooperative agreement. This was created in 1993 with the creation of the HPC, and it was last revised in 2011. The major changes in this current iteration is the consolidation, recognizing the consolidation of 153A and 160A specifically that really governed the HPC. That has now converted to 160D with the consolidation. It also addresses membership. It adds 2 alternate members to the 9 regular members. And it also makes those positions at large, so it doesn't focus or pigeonhole into one specific category of discipline, which allows more flexibility and easier time recruiting members. And then last, it also allows members to avail themselves of the city stipend. So the city appointed HPC members can then take advantage of the stipend program. The commission appointed members are already able to take advantage, but the city members are not. So those are the major changes, and I'll entertain any questions you have.
Thank you, Carla. Any questions about the revised agreement? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And item number 7, the new UDO dark sky certification and bird-friendly design. Robin Schultz, principal planner and arborist.
May I back up for 1 second? I'm sorry, Chair Jacobs. We will be moving the ILA. Just wanted to make sure we close that loop. We'll move the ILA to both governing bodies for approval from here. But I just wanted to make sure that that was on the record and everybody knew, since our attorneys are sitting over there and I know we're about to lose one in a couple of weeks. So it will be moving forward to both bodies. Yes, the HBC interlocal. Yes, thank you. Sorry.
All right. Good morning, y'all. I'm Robin Schultz with the Planning and Development Department, doing a bad job already. Here to present on the new UDO as it relates to bird-friendly development and the dark sky certification. It is not lost on me that my name is Robin as I'm presenting on birds, but just gonna make that joke before y'all do. All right, so why do this? Besides the fact that that's my namesake, right? So luckily, the comprehensive plan has already given us the homework. It's already been assigned. It's been mentioned multiple times, biodiversity, green infrastructure, environmental justice, housing and neighborhoods, and there are also 2 specific policies which directly relate, or actions, I should say, to addressing light pollution and also decreasing the impact of new development on birds. So this is not just something that we've heard. This is something that we need to do, and it's already been directed to us through the comprehensive plan. And luckily, a lot of the policies that address other portions of the comprehensive plan, right, through some strategies that I'm going to talk about in just a second. Additionally, birds serve as an incredible ecological indicator. So really thinking about how to track what Durham looks like from a natural systems perspective as we continue to urbanize. So those potential policy shifts that I was talking about before are sort of delineated into 3 different buckets, which are going to be lighting standards, landscaping standards, and architectural standards. And then I'll talk a little bit about dark sky afterwards. So sort of starting out with lighting standards. So light trespass, light into the sky, bad for birds who are migrating, just generally other nocturnal animals as well, right? So thinking about light trespass, which is light that extends beyond property lines in the planning sense, but just sort of generally goes a little bit too far in the non-regulatory sense. So right now, the UDO regulates light trespass in terms of being adjacent to residential properties or non-residential properties. And so you can have 5-foot candles if you are adjacent to non-residential. You can have 0.5 if you are adjacent to residential. So within the new UDO, this should address, excuse me, the fact that the conservation and park zoning districts are non-residential but should receive a lower light trespass to protect those avian populations, as well as other tree coverage or natural areas. We also need to update our lighting fixture standards to make sure that we are allowing the minimum amount of light trespass while still retaining public safety. And then right now, the UDO only has standards for multifamily and non-residential development as far as lighting goes. So incorporating standards for single family will make a big impact as well. Next up is going to be the landscaping standards. So really thinking about how do we preserve existing plant material whenever possible, right? So right now in the UDO, if you have a required landscape buffer, you are required to preserve it if that buffer is 30 feet or greater. In the new UDO standards currently, if it is there and it is required, then you need to preserve it as far as the buffer goes. Additionally, we want to think about incentivizing native species and increasing species diversity requirements within the UDO. Currently, the only place that you are required to have native species are within tree replacement. So when you have tree coverage standards, which is, the sort of block of forest land that you're required to protect, if you cannot meet that standard and you have to replant, we require that those be native. We don't really have any native standards for landscaping, so things like vehicle use areas, street trees, et cetera. But I do think that the tide is turning sort of culturally, and we're definitely seeing nurseries pick up and recognize that natives are available and useful. So I think a lot of the standards to using native species or requiring them are decreasing, which is great to hear. And additionally, we're going to be updating the landscape manual in 2026. It was supposed to be concurrent with UDO, but I cannot do both at once. So we are going to work on the UDO and then work on the landscape manual. And obviously, the species that exist in the manual have a direct impact on the comprehensive plan goals and objectives as they relate to biodiversity and all the other environmental goals as well. And sort of lastly, thinking about how do we increase tree canopy coverage and our tree protection standards, taking what we like from our existing neighborhood protection overlays and then expanding that across the city, trying to really preserve habitat and meet our overall canopy goals, more specifically the 55% tree canopy by 2040, which is an explicit comp plan policy action. And so lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about architectural standards. I think this is actually the hardest one to regulate. The state does not really allow us to apply a lot of architectural standards for things which are built under the residential building code. We are working on a sustainability matrix to hopefully include that as an incentive. And additionally, in those compact and affordable options of the new proposed RD district, we hope that there are going to be ways to promote these bird-friendly glazing materials as a part of that, since that is an opt-in as opposed to the base. And so really trying to incentivize the actual materials or the windows themselves rather than the temporary window adhesives, which work better as a retrofit because they often need to be replaced every so often. So lastly, I did just want to talk a little bit about Dark Sky. I've done some research into it. This is an organization which essentially can give you a certification at a community level, an individual site level, building level, I believe. So there are different tiers. The sort of tier for a community or a city, the major requirements are going to be writing and adopting a lighting ordinance, which meets all of their tenets. It's going to require retrofitting all publicly owned lighting within 5 years and requiring all private lighting fixtures to come into compliance within 10 years and establishing a sky brightness monitoring program to make sure that you're actually decreasing light pollution and then also demonstrating a commitment to dark skies by organizing public outreach events. Some potential issues with pursuing that certification, planning and development have no real idea on the number of city lighting fixtures that need to be in compliance. And we have no, that's general services. I'm not going to look at Gina, but that's that side of the house. And additionally, we do have a standard in the UDO for anything that is pre-2000 that's private to be grandfathered in. So none of those would be grandfathered anymore. Additionally, dark sky regulates by lumens rather than foot candles. And so lumens are the actual light that's being emitted by the fixture. Foot candles are the amount of light that's sort of being received or reflected. And so we currently regulate by foot candles. That's not to say that we can't regulate by lumens, but it is to say that if we're going to require everything to come into compliance with lumens, that might require extra resources in terms of how that's measured, what that looks like, enforcement, all those sorts of fun things. So that's potentially another thing to consider. And there are certain standards that are more strict than our current ordinance. For instance, the old bull sign would not be allowed under dark sky, but I do think that's like pretty quintessential Durham. There are some other things like lighting curfews and sports fields, which are more restrictive. So this isn't to say that dark sky is a bad idea by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a pretty significant lift and would require some interdepartmental coordination and some potential coercion of Duke Energy. So ultimately, I think we are leaning towards doing the first bullet under the major requirements of writing and adopting a lighting ordinance, which, we've been working with the New Hope Bird Alliance to try and incorporate those standards as much as we can. So really trying to do as much as we can within the UDO without maybe going through all of the other monitoring program, public outreach, et cetera. That would be more of a coordinated effort, which is a little bit outside of my pay grade. But if you would like to make me city manager, I will accept the position. And so lastly, I did just want to, thank Jennifer Marr and Barbara Driscoll from the New Hope Bird Alliance, who were incredibly helpful in putting this presentation and memo together. And I did just want to show you something if it will work. Well, it doesn't want to work. But essentially what it is the Birdcast, which is a site which will show you night by night the amount of birds that are migrating over your area. Last night, 13,000 birds migrated over Durham County, which is on the lower end, actually. We are part of the Atlantic Flyway, and during spring and fall migrations, it is, I think, upwards of millions of birds in total. So it's definitely not an insignificant number. But it doesn't look like we're going to get that to work for you.
No, that's not. Yeah. Can you pull it back up? Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to drive.
So tight.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and pull that up. And then if you have questions, I will do that at the same time.
Thank you. I have a number of comments and questions, but I'll wait and to Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Robin because I know I met with some of those folks, I guess, last week. And just they very much appreciated planning staff's attention and thoughtfulness. So I just want to shout out planning staff for all their work. I would love to see, even if it's like, timelined out, it is a huge lift. And I know we can't do it all at once. Two things, and this started getting on our radar on council whenever Duke Energy changed the light bulbs, and there was a whole bunch of emails about the light bulbs. And so that is going to come up at a certain point on a contract when we flip the light bulbs again. And so I just don't want to miss that opportunity. So I don't remember, I think it is General Services that was involved, the department at the time. And so I want to say it was 7 years. I could be wrong. But that is coming soon. And so I just want to flag that because it's a huge missed opportunity to get the light bulbs we have now, which apparently are on the pretty low end quality of what efficient light bulbs can do. And also we've just come a long way on spectrum and visibility of, good Lord, I forgot the kind of light bulbs that those are. They're not incandescent anymore. They are.
LED.
Thank you, LED. And I know early LED lights were garish and not fun. So
Yes. Well, thank you. That was going to be one of my questions, was the Duke Energy contract. So thank you for flagging that. And yeah, I think that's really critical because also we know that LED lighting can have negative impacts on people too. There've been a lot of studies about sleep disruption. So yeah, getting on top of that opportunity sounds like a great idea. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you, Robin.
Good morning.
Are there any other North Carolina cities that have dark sky certification that you know of?
I don't believe so. Jennifer? Asheville, maybe.
Maybe.
I think they have incorporated at least, they have at least updated their UDO to include a lot of the standards. I don't know if they've done the full lift.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about how do you make a window less fatal to a bird, and what are the implications on keeping us?
Yeah.
It seems to be it's a good idea. How do you make a window? What is that?
Yeah. So often what you need to do is just create something that sort of allows the bird to see that it is not transparent. And so often it can be those like smaller dots or lines or adhesives, things of that nature. Honestly, insect screens too. There are a lot of like low effort ways to do this as well. And I think so going back to that question about adhesives too, is that when you focus on the actual material or like etched glass or things of that nature that are permanent, it is much better because the adhesives do wear away as they have all that sun exposure. So it's literally just doing small adjustments to the window panes themselves that alert the bird that it's like, oh wait, this is actually not the sky. I should probably go up or around.
Does obtaining the certification require 100% meeting everything they ask, or is there a threshold once you get beyond, you can get the certification? I want to, have truth in advertising. If we're going after it and we know we can't get it, then we shouldn't be advertising it. So threshold, or do we have to do 100%?
You have to do it 100%, yeah, for a community.
Right. That, which makes sense, you go to all the classes before you graduate, right?
Yeah.
So this question is for council. In your read of what we're doing here, how much of this, in your opinion, can we compel at the local level, and how much of it will have to be incentivized or requested of developers in future development? Ballpark percentages.
Sorry, sorry, technical difficulties. And I will have to get back to you specifically on that question, because there are some things in 160D that allow us to deal with design if it's voluntary, agreed to by the developer. And then there's some things that we're not permitted under 160D to require. So a lot of this can be incentivized where the requirements come in. That's the portion I'll have to look to see if we have that authority, if it's not a design aspect of the development. If it's a design aspect, it has to be voluntarily agreed to by the developer. We wouldn't be able to place those type of requirements.
Okay. All right, that's it for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember?
Thank you. I think one thing, I appreciate your point, Mayor Pro Tem, because we are limited in North Carolina what we can require. There's also like tiers. So what was shared with me is that there's cities that are dark sky compliant, and then there's like the city of Pittsburgh just did it to start with their own city facilities and parks, right? So there's ways that we can approach it that allow us to, and then you can do that education piece for the public down the road. So that's what I meant by kind of a tiered and timelined approach, that it is a heavy lift. I know, so my sister lives in Tucson. That's how I became aware of it. It's a dark sky city. And it is pretty incredible to be somewhere where you can see the night sky as a human, something that we really lack in Durham. And in the prioritization of everything we have going as a city, I understand it can be towards the bottom, and I respect that. But I think especially if we can incorporate some of it in the UDO, I think the Pickett Road folks wanted to put more in their lighting commitments that they couldn't because it was beyond what we allowed in our own UDO. And so giving that opportunity for folks to voluntarily proffer, I think sometimes, same with native planning and other things we have seen, at least in rezoning, folks willing to proffer those things. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And I want to associate myself with everything you said. My questions are reflective of my desire to do it. And to do it fully, I think it's a wonderful, the quality of life, just the difference is just remarkable. But I also want to be, a policymaker, realistic in what we telegraph to our constituents. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield.
Just really quickly. So a lot of what we talk about here, like with the UDO and so forth, it has to do with here forward, like things going forward. Dark sky stuff is here backwards, right? Making adjustments for things going backwards. I just wanted to clarify that. But also about the lighting. So before you got into the dark sky, I think before you got into the dark sky information, you were talking about, maybe it wasn't before then, but you were talking about the balance between lighting and safety, right? Like, how do we bring down lights and still keep the safety levels? What's the balance in dark skies with that? Because I'm very familiar with foot candles from doing film work and things. Foot candles don't impact lumens, but lumens impact foot candle lighting. And so if we go to the lumen side, I would imagine, and we reduce it, I'd imagine the light that we saw on the street, on the ground would greatly reduce. Some places already kind of dark itself. What impact would dark skies regulations have on what we consider as safe levels of lighting?
Yeah. I will say that is a tough question, because the sort of threshold for like what is safe, right? And like at what impact is lighting impact safety is different to all people and different to whom you ask, right? And there are certain studies that show that relationship is actually a little bit more tenuous. But I do think that the way the dark sky sort of aims to get at public safety is by, when you do have lighting, ensuring that it's pointed downward instead of upward, thinking about the actual, trying to think about the word, it's not temperature, but more like warm lighting and less like cool lighting.
It's temperature.
Okay, perfect. And thinking about things like curfews, so lights that are either shut off at a certain time or motion activated. And I think that is sort of the larger attempt, is to reduce lighting where possible, but not to get rid of it. But I do agree that that sort of line of like, when is it reduced to a point of public safety concern is tenuous.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is really important. You know, the report to us started out saying that since 1970, we've seen almost a 30% reduction in the bird population in the United States. And I've read recent articles. It's not just birds, it's butterflies, it's lightning bugs. I don't know how many of you really have started to notice this in your own life. I'm very aware that I feel like the number of birds and even fireflies at night is less. Butterflies, we know monarchs. So we have seen, there was a report that was recently, I don't know if it was shared with you all, but was shared with us. It was a updated biodiversity inventory of the New Hope, watershed. And it looked at not just birds and insects, it looked at fungus and mushrooms. It looked at frogs and toads, reptiles, I mean, everything, you name it. And it was really shocking to read that report, because what it showed is that everything is impacted by light, including the insects and the frogs and everything. So I think for me, this is actually not just a dark sky, issue for bird-friendly design. This is really, for me, this is ecologically, this is about our whole ecosystem, because I didn't realize until reading this recent report that it's light pollution and pesticides, like from fertilizers from people's grass, that is really impacting our entire ecosystem in Durham. So I think anything that we can do to make a dent in this, I don't think that perfect has to be the enemy of good. And so I'd be really interested in you all looking at, like a phased approach, what is the low-hanging fruit? What can people voluntarily do? I think a lot of people probably don't realize the choices that they can make, including developers. I'm wondering about working with our cooperative extension. We have our volunteer master gardeners. We've got our soil and water conservation district. Like, I feel like we can't put this just on the planning and development staff. Like, this needs to be, I think, a community-wide effort. And I can really see people in Durham embracing this. Wondering even how we get to the level of, how people now can get their yards certified as with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission as being a, biodiversity kind of yard. And there's been a lot of data that shows that, like, what happens on every single person's yard, however big it is, makes a difference. So I think this is really exciting and has a lot of great potential. I'm not so married to, like, we have to get the certification and meet every single thing. I'm really interested in what can we do. So I hope you all will come back with some different options and thinking about it that way for us.
Absolutely. I think that, at least primarily, given that this is like definitely an interdepartmental lift, that will focus on the UDO regulations first, especially as the UDO is sort of like the most pressing piece, and will be adopted first, hopefully. And then am I hearing that maybe after that point, we sort of reconvene about like potential for pursuing other parts of the certification that may require speaking with like general services or something along those lines? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, don't
Okay.
just limit it to general services, like
Okay.
county departments too, right? I mean, we want to be a
Yeah.
partner
Okay.
on that. So, yeah. Yes, go ahead.
You mentioned that the dark sky certification doesn't have to be like a full city. It could be different areas, right? Could it be like neighborhoods? Could it be like, how does that work? The reason I'm asking is there a way for us to incentivize or gamify neighborhoods or areas in Durham to say, get this certification for your neighborhood, right? So like make small chunks and then we're celebrating that as it starts to.
Yeah, so there are different ways to do it, right? So there are like, I think it's like places is one of them, sites. So sort of thinking about specific buildings, sort of like similar to like LEED, or parks. I think Bo just told me that all of the North Carolina certifications have been like for park areas of that nature, sort of specific to that. I'm not sure about neighborhoods, but that's a great question of something to incentivize as a part of subdivision standards.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? And again, also I want to thank people in the community who have been helping, working in partnership with our staff. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Okay, and last item on our agenda is the new UDO potential zoning capacity. And also Robin, no, you're walking away, Robin, not Robin.
Robin heard it's been a tough couple of weeks for people who talk about numbers in public, so he asked me to do it instead. Thank you. All right, so I'm Scott Whiteman from the Planning and Development Department. So we put this together as a response to some questions we got at the June JCCPC meeting when we were asking you all to weigh in on kind of individual zoning decisions, and as you all are kind of discerning about how much to rely on bonuses to achieve density, or how much we kind of proactively upzone properties. Basically, how many units can we get out of what we're proposing in the new UDO? So this was our kind of rudimentary attempt to answer that question for you all. So to do this, we made it's a fairly simple model. It's mostly just acreage times and anticipated units per acre. For those of you who are on the MPO board, often you've probably seen more sophisticated models that have more variables and inputs and all that. This is not that model, but this was just to give you an idea of what can we accommodate if we zone everything the way we're proposing. And to do this, we looked at properties that were likely to redevelop. We didn't aggregate everything, so we're not assuming that a subdivision that's only 5 years old is going to get torn down and redeveloped. Some of the key assumptions, and I guess one thing I should mention, for those of you who weren't around for the comprehensive plan and hear me say this 100 times, we are anticipating a need of about 60,000 units in order to accommodate our population growth by 2050, which was the kind of horizon year for the comp plan. I believe for the 2055 MTP, that's been revised upward. So don't have an exact count of how many units we need, but it's something 62,000, 65,000, something like that. For this, we did not include special purpose districts like the University College District because they don't have a standard units per acre development standard. So it's hard to kind of predict how many units or residential units will be on there. Properties that have been recently rezoned, we assumed they'd be developed at the density they were rezoned for, not what was proposed in the new UDO. So if a PDR was recently rezoned at 3.5 units per acre, we assumed it would develop at 3.5 units per acre, not whatever the RD density is. All scenarios are based on the by right allowances. This does not include any potential density bonuses or the kind of the options 2 and 3 in the RD district. And we did not assume any residential units in the SRP or IC, which is the kind of the new RTP zoning, not because we aren't anticipating residential units in as part of RTP 3.0. There will definitely be residential units in that zoning district. It's just we don't have the standards developed yet, and so we don't know enough to predict what they could be, but just know that RTP, Duke University, Central will be providing residential units of some sort on campus housing. So those would be above and beyond what is kind of the result of this exercise. Some limitations, we can't predict the future. So we don't know exactly what properties will develop at what time and at what density. There could be environmental constraints we don't know about. So everything needs to be taken with a lot of caveats. So, you know, land costs could go up. We could have sewer capacity issues in some areas. So this is not exactly how many units we're going to have. So everyone should keep that in mind when they are using these numbers. So basically, this table breaks out what we assumed per each zoning district, both in the current UDO and in the proposed new UDO, as the proposal stood in June. So under the current UDO is over 136,000 potential units. Under the new UDO, that was over 200,000, slightly over 200,000 units, which does represent a 46% increase in zoning capacity. It should be noted that 46% is almost exclusively within the urban growth boundary. So kind of meets one of our primary comprehensive plan goals of accommodating more residential growth in the areas that have already in or near existing public services. It is not an estimate of how many units we're going to get. We can't predict that. It's just an estimate of what we could accommodate under zoning. So this is not a it's not a projection. I know I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but it's really important. It's it's the capacity that we think we can accommodate under the new UDO. And so I know there were probably here some arguments, well, we can already accommodate everything we can under the current zoning densities. Why do we need to increase them? And that is a fair argument, but I think it's important to remember that we are still kind of behind in housing production. Most cities are. By some analysis, we have a supply gap of over 17,000 units. So we will continue to need to overshoot until we have enough houses for everybody, basically. And also, if you make the zoning too restrictive to be too close to what you anticipate demand, that will almost certainly drive up prices because you'll have less land available for builders and developers to compete for. What I think it does show you is that there is quite a bit of wiggle room for you all when you're making decisions about how high or low to go with particular zoning districts, how we deal with properties that are outside the city and need to be annexed. So effectively, we know we have enough capacity under the current proposed new UDO to accommodate our population growth. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And Scott, can you just clarify, what is the time period that this is supposed to be looking at, and the projected population growth or the projected need within that time period?
So this is not time bound at all. This is like the zoning districts as they are proposed right now.
Okay.
If they were to build out
For the next 100
until-
years or whatever.
until we're full,
Okay.
This is how many units we
Okay.
could accommodate.
Because we know the projection for we're at like 347
Mhm.
now, 347,000. It's projected in 2050 that will be around 450. Is that correct?
It's somewhere in
Okay.
the mid 400,000s.
And so, this is
Yeah.
is kind of
Yeah,
far beyond
yeah.
the next.
And it's also important to
20
remember that we do 30-year projections because that's about the most you can do
Right.
reasonably.
Yeah,
But no one is expecting zero population growth at year 31. So
right.
we can
Yeah.
probably reasonably assume that we'll keep growing at the same rate unless there's a really
Yeah.
major change.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Burton.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to understand why RTP's for 3.0 plan was not included into this, or
Yeah, so it's primarily because we're still working on that zoning district. We're working with our friends at the Research Triangle Foundation, so we don't know how many units to predict yet. We will certainly, once we know, we can include those in the analysis. But for right now, we didn't. I think Bo's coming to bail me out.
Bo Dobrinsky, Plan Development. In addition to not knowing, because obviously RTP Foundation might have some idea or some expectation, right? You know, the district that they'll be under, as well as Duke and Central and Durham Tech, as we're proposing, will allow a lot of zoning flexibility. And so they actually might have projected numbers, right? Like RTP 3.0 might say, you know, they have a goal of X number, but since we were bound to the zoning restriction itself, and those districts will allow quite a bit of flexibility. And I'll add, Scott mentioned it earlier, but we've also had conversations with some of these other institutions about providing not just student housing, but housing for employees as well. So those residential units wouldn't be factored in just because we don't want to, I mean, we were doing our best in pretty short notice to give you the most scientific response. And so we didn't want to just make up those numbers. So.
Thank you for raising that, Commissioner Burton. It's my understanding that we will be getting a draft zoning ordinance for RTP 3.0 next month at this meeting. So it is time sensitive. We know that, you know, the UDO is not going to be finalized for quite a while, but, you know, RTP 3.0 has been in the works for quite a while. And Wake County has actually already approved a rezoning that allows housing. And 3.0 RTP, the owners are ready to move forward, which is really exciting. And we certainly don't want to be standing in the way of folks who are ready to make RTP a work, live, play environment. So I look forward to that being brought to us next month. Thank you.
Thank you. So in the 2055 MTP, which you're right, is projecting a little bit higher. One of the other things I thought that was really good about the data is it's also mapping employment, right? And so the jobs that are predicted for Durham County, essentially every single person would match a job, which is not how employment works because there's always a percentage of folks who are not in the workforce. And so there's actually opportunity to I want to also capture population from other communities because if the jobs are here, that means they're coming in from somewhere else and they're commuting. And that's tax base we're just letting go because we are not thinking about that. So that's one thing I do want to flag for folks, that this is really excellent. This is tracking to what we know currently, but it's the whole region grows 1.5 million, right? And the only county that's not growing is Orange County. They're actually decreasing in population a bit. Johnston County and Wake County are the two counties that will grow even more rapidly. And so I don't want to, we always say this, and it is competition. This is a region, you have lots of choices, and I want folks to pick Durham, either to stay, that, you know, you grew up in Durham, but maybe you have a job or you're looking somewhere else and you're gonna move to Wake or Johnston County, I want you to stay in Durham, or you're moving to the area and I want you to pick Durham. And so whenever we are thinking about land use, we also have to think about you know, we are a region, we want to work well with others, but we also want to win. So just naming that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you for throwing this together. I understand, you know, methodology is tough here. You were doing it quickly, so I hear all that. It's a rough calculation here. But my takeaway here is a pretty massive kind of community-wide upzoning. It would be my big high-level takeaway here, 135,000, whatever the accuracy of that is, to something around 200 plus thousand. So my question is, I do think that factoring in density bonuses is an important consideration, or should be an important consideration when we're looking at capacity. And part of the reason is because of the recent legislation at the state level that doesn't allow us to downzone anymore. It's a one-way street now. We do something, we can't take it back. And the fact that density bonuses, we talk about like, what can we do? What can't we do? We can do a lot of things through density bonuses. And if we take away, if we automatically kind of like give away the density, we can't use density as an incentive anymore. We can't use it to implement density bonuses to get good things for the community. So I wanted to flag that as something that I'm thinking about and concerned about. And so I do want us to think about and consider what is our capacity, by right, but also by right with a density bonus, which is also by right, right? The purpose of that it doesn't have to go through a discretionary review process. So I wanted to flag that and put that in front of you so that we can continue thinking about that moving forward.
Thank you. Oh.
Just to understand all of those comments and very much appreciated. In terms of the methodology, because the current proposal actually, with those bonuses, there's no cap with the way they're proposed. That number would be infinite, which is obviously not a helpful number to use. So one of the issues with using the, those bonuses is because we're trying to incentivize them so much by not having any cap on it at all that the number would be meaningless. But appreciate that it is a consideration.
Yeah, we would likely have to make an assumption about how many people would take advantage of the bonus and how many units we would get out of it. And then you all would have to decide how much you think that assumption is right. That would be a hard thing to predict.
And I'm completely on board with kind of the infinite for the density bonus. I think my concern is pretty straightforward, just losing that opportunity to make it a bonus. If we kind of give everything away for free, what's the incentive to do a bonus at all? So.
Go ahead.
And I think that's up to, you can give people timeline, you can get folks ahead of there's all kinds of process ways you can get people ahead if they're doing more, right? Like we can create a whole process that if you're dedicating X amount to affordability or dedicating land or a set aside, you're guaranteed a faster review process. So I don't think that, I don't see how we achieve a 15-minute city without densifying. I think it's a counter, if we didn't believe it, we should have done a comp plan where a city is dense by default. And every other city in the US did not give away, that's how you got the city. You gave away the density and you let people build up. And what we're trying to do, and I think in Durham, we have a really great opportunity is we are a southern city. And as we know, most southern cities sprawled out. And we have a real opportunity that our growth has kind of come, not in the 70s, 80s, and 90s where that was the trend, but where this belief in a city, belief in density is popular again. And I'm glad that it is. So in many ways, we are in a perfect place to reimagine and redefine what it means to be in the South and not be Atlanta, not be Charlotte, not be Dallas, not be any of these places. And at this point, you can get almost anywhere you need to be. And this is by car, and we're working on that transit piece and things like the rail trail, things like the Roxborough Trail will get us to a place where folks can choose other transit options. And the other piece of it for me is that the building envelope of Durham is a small envelope at the end of the day. We don't have a ton of land. We are a small county. So in some ways, we have just a lot of favorability to be able to envision that thing that we've all said yes to, which is this, yeah, we want you to be able to get to where you need to get walking, transit, biking in about 15 minutes. And you're never going to achieve that if you don't have density.
And I think the framing here is not density or no density. We obviously need density. We need to urbanize. I think the framing here is density with affordable housing, with environmental incentives and green building, or density without those things. And so I think that's an important way for us to envision this. How do we get those density bonuses and make them as easy as possible and lead with those when developers come in? How do we make sure that is the intended outcome is use, constant use, consistent use of the density bonuses in urbanizing and urbanizing the way that we grow.
Thank you. I really appreciate this conversation because the efficacy of our density bonus has been a perpetual question for us. We have not had great success with it, precisely because it has been tethered to affordable housing and other inducements. I think to Councilmember Caballero's point, I mean, inherent in the definition of urbanization, there will be density by definition. The remedy, we found is, you want affordable units, put their money on the table. I mean, the question has been subsidies. The developers have not been interested. Our density bonus has not been significant enough to induce developers to do affordable units, to do some of these things that we can't compel otherwise. But what has been compelling is when we've been willing to put city subsidies into our affordable units. Money answereth all things. So yeah, the density bonus has always been a tool for us, but we have not had great efficacy with it. And if we want to, bolster it, we're gonna have to spend some money. Thank you.
You get to watch a philosophical conversation take place up here. Actually, did you want to go? Okay. An important one, absolutely. That's absolutely right. We need every tool in the toolbox, and one of those tools is density bonuses, as well as all of these other tools that we've been hearing about, financial, the process tools. We need all the tools in the toolbox, including density bonuses. And density bonuses work in communities when you hold the line and you don't you don't give density away for free consistently. When you don't consistently upzone properties without the need for density bonuses. And so I think if we hold the line and make the density bonuses work really well, which means they consistently have to be updated for changing market conditions, then I think that it can be a more powerful tool in the toolbox to achieve some of the goods that we want to get in Durham.
Councilmember Furman, I'm intrigued. What does hold the line in a practical sense mean as a policymaking board? What does that mean?
If I could say it in the most clear kind of way, it would be that the number when we are looking at this agenda item, that the number 136,445 is the same on the top and the bottom. So that by right, base zoning, you get the same outcome. Obviously, we are remapping and rewriting the entire UDO. It's impossible. I mean, we're changing all the zoning districts. It's impossible for staff to be able to say that the number is going to be the same. That's not realistic. What I'm saying is let's try and keep it close so that we can make that density bonus as effective as possible.
Did you want to? Okay. I'm intrigued for real. And so in your assessment, what have we not been doing to make the density bonus effective other than not putting a whole bunch of money and subsidies with it? What in this current environment, tell us what we should be doing differently with respect to the density bonus, because I'm intrigued.
I think that we need to make sure that we are not just offering density increases without ensuring that there are public goods included, whether that's affordable housing or some other public goods that we are not able to already require through our standards.
Currently, our density bonus is tethered to affordable housing. It just hasn't been attractive to developers. Yeah. What makes it more attractive is money. Teach me. I'm seriously, I'm intrigued. I mean, if there's I'll yield.
Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you. And to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, it's not just Durham. The density bonus has not been an effective tool in many, many communities. And I think so. I'm just trying to understand. I'm on page 2, Councilmember Baker. You're saying, so I'm looking at the existing zoning districts and it totals 136,000 plus a little bit. And you're saying that that unless there's some kind of tethered affordability, so for every parcel, right? Because, right, then like, explain to me, you don't want it to go above the 136,000? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Let's take a parcel that you're allowed to build.
But this is macro, so that's what I'm trying to understand. That's what the UDO is. This isn't a micro rezoning. This is a macro redo. And so what I'm hearing from you is what we are allowing is we are, to your point, upzoning, which to me was very clear that we were going to do that when we said we were going to do an urban growth boundary. I don't know if you were on council at that time, but in this room, in these conversations, there's been a lot of direction to staff. And at least I was very clear. I was like, there's no urban growth boundary unless we say yes to density, or I wouldn't have voted for it. Because we have an example next door. And I think that that's the part that I get frustrated by, is that we don't have to look across the country. We don't have to look anywhere. We can look at a next door neighbor. They're the only county that's not going to have population growth. And for the folks who are worried about displacement and gentrification, while I understand that, losing population, there's also a risk to that. There's also a cost to that to a community, which means that they can't support the services anymore. And if you look at Chapel Hill's budgetary issues right now, I think it's an indicator of what does it cost to lose population or not grow. Their school system is decreasing because people can't afford to buy a home there. The Black population of Chapel Hill has decreased, right? Because folks weren't able to stay in their homes either. And so I understand your intent and I understand the consternation behind it, but at a certain point, we do operate in a macroeconomic system that is unjust and unfair, but we are one power level in that. And so we're up against a wall in many ways. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, it looks like you want to say something.
I do have a couple of things to say. One, just to back up a little bit, and I think that this is the understanding, but that capacity number that Councilmember Baker is referencing, much larger, because what we're proposing is with the new UDO and the rezoning aligns with the place type. And if we took a different, and I certainly don't want to speak for you, but to Mayor Pro Tem's question about what does it look like to hold the line, I think the different approach to that would be to not proactively rezone aligning with the place type. And that would be that's a completely different approach to the project in terms of how the districts are to be applied with the proposal. Some of that is because of the RD district obviously being much more dense. Some of it is just the TOAs, right? Like those place types where, we know we wanted to increase density in those locations, along transit corridors, et cetera. And so I guess the suggestion would be to not propose that rezoning, and then, I'm generally asking.
No, I think we need to align them. Absolutely.
Okay.
What I'm saying is don't give away all the density for free. And so we've got this number, 136,445. That's potential new units under the existing zoning districts, according to this, rough process. Proposed zoning districts, 200,720. I would actually want to see, again, we're sort of talking high level philosophically here. I'd love to see two numbers. Here's what's allowed under, existing zoning, maximum density, height, whatever. And here's what is allowed or what's anticipated under the density bonus. And again, don't go and do that. Consider doing that calculation, but I'm not telling you to do that calculation. But that's what I'm getting at here in terms of hold the line. I'm saying let's urbanize, let's densify, let's bring things in line with the place type map. Absolutely, that we all agree on that. What I'm saying is we need to make sure that we're not giving away all the density for free, so that we're not getting rid of this really, really important tool that is one of many, many tools that my colleagues have outlined for ensuring that we are getting things that we are not necessarily allowed to require in Chapter 160D.
Thank you. I just really want to thank you both for the 276, that's obviously everywhere, but what you're going to see is more intense density in the areas that the place type map calls for, right? Mm-hmm. And so the comp plan was the vision, right? So I appreciate what you're saying, Councilmember Baker, but I don't see a mechanism to get to what you're asking for. And I don't think that staff shouldn't figure that out. Like, I think that you've requested a thing, we should honor it, but if we took the 200 and like, not everyone's going to see the intense densification in the same way. It's going to be felt differently depending on where you are with the place type map.
That is correct. One other limitation that Mr. Whiteman didn't mention is that also assumes like a lot, like all of the development, and there's a lot of flexibility there. I know he said that several times, several different ways, but it is unlikely that in 30 years, all of that development is done, right? Like it's not that the entire, I mean, I know we're growing at a fast rate, but that is unlikely. I take from Councilmember Baker's comment, though, that the suggestion may be, and we don't need to get into the details of the regulations today, but the actual density that would be allowed, are you suggesting that it be lower or heights be lower or?
And I appreciate you guys wrestling with the philosophical conversation that's happening up here between myself and my colleagues. I think what I would, again, this is kind of theoretical, but let's say today, under the existing regulations, you can build a 3-story building. We want to change that. We want to change that area to transit-oriented development, for example. A lot of things are going to change. We're going to change the setbacks so that they're built to. We're going to change the design standards, all of that to activate the street, right, in places like that. But that we would still say, today, you're allowed to build 3 stories, but the vision is that you build 10 stories or 20 stories or 30 stories, and here's how you get there. And that we lead with that. And with the expectation and a realistic expectation, not something that's precluding that by overly cumbersome, unrealistic density bonuses that have no basis in market reality, but one that is based in market reality, which means we may have to tweak it from time to time to achieve that vision of 10, 20, 30 stories in these kinds of places.
If those 10, 20, 30 stories are not market rate apartments or commercial tenants and they're affordable units, how many millions are we gonna put with it? I mean, what's the induced them, other than money, what's the inducement?
Taxpayer money. That's all I got.
Can I ask a follow-up
Yes,
question?
and then I'll make some
And then
comments. Go
connect with
ahead.
Commissioner Burton,
Yes.
go ahead. I can wait.
I am just enjoying this discussion because I'm learning about planning. Thank you.
And we're glad you're here. Thank you for
Thank you.
being a great alternate.
I think, so I appreciate your point. I guess my thing is, well, how long have we had our density? I mean, here's the thing, and I guess maybe this is a difference. I don't actually see it as philosophical. I see actual data that I have to rely on. I have a 2055, I have a model with the projected population growth. I have a model with projected employment that isn't taking into account climate change, which I think is going to impact who ends up moving here, right? This is a forecast based on like today, right? And we are, to the best of our ability, forecasting out 30 years, right? And that can be hit or miss. And that is informing my decisions. It is not, to me, it isn't philosophical. For me, it's how do we ensure that folks can afford to live here? And what are the decisions that we are making today that are going to impact the next 30 years? That is how I'm informing my decisions. And I, again, understand that there are lots of things in our society, culture, economic model that don't set up humans for success, that are counter to that. But my decision-making has to be based on the data that I have in front of me. And the data that I have in front of me is showing me that I have a lot of folks coming, and how are we going to set up this UDO to imagine that world? And so I would love to see, we've had a density bonus for a long time. I would love to see how many folks have taken it up. I would love to see what compared to other density bonuses in other communities, what's different between ours and theirs? Is there something that we can change? And based on that, because that's the data I have, what would that be applied to the units that you're sharing? And so we can kind of see what impact would it actually make. Does that make sense, what I'm requesting?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sorry to ask y'all to keep working on these things, but these are, And I'm not a planner, so this is kind of where I live.
So yes, that's something that we're currently working on. I've sort of alluded to this throughout the last 6 months of these presentations. And several of you have mentioned a version of this in the last 20 minutes of discourse. The density bonus that we currently have, of course, requires 15%. We've shown the options in the residential districts and CX districts. We have not provided a proposed percentage. One thing that we know, and this is just being, very, very candid, without the, we want to prepare that, is that number's probably got to be lower, significantly lower. Not because we don't want the maximum amount.
You mean the 15% has to come down?
Correct.
What we heard in Minneapolis, and they do actually have inclusionary zoning, and you were there, Bo. So the communities that are saying, these are, and I'm glad that they have this tool, but the communities that keep upping their inclusionary zoning numbers, 20-25%, are actually seeing building go down. And that what Minneapolis was able to show, and then they've had 5 years of stable rent, was that 8% was the sweet spot, that you could do inclusionary zoning even up to 10. But when you start requiring so much, it just gets into the financing limitations, into the Mayor Pro Tem's point, you're going to have to put a lot of government money in it. So I'm not surprised that that's what you're also seeing or thinking about.
Yes, Minneapolis at the 8% is a great example. They go down to 4% if the affordability is deeper, which I think is also something that we'll need to include or at least keep in mind. The one comment on that is we plan on providing that that has a lot of the same limitations that sort of these projections do as well, right? Like, because we're trying to apply these other situations to our individual market. But yeah, that's something that we can provide to you to the best of our ability.
Great conversation, everyone. I really appreciate it. This is what we're supposed to be doing, is having these types of policy discussions. So thank you. Yes,
Commissioner Jacobs, I'm sorry. Can we make
Yes.
sure to get the housing needs assessment data as well that the chamber was doing, that we paid into? Thank you, from HR. Yeah, thank you.
so yesterday I attended the Chamber Economic Summit. And Matthew Gladdock started out with some slides. And one of the slides, the data that he shared was that while the Durham now has a 12% multifamily vacancy rate, the actual rent is correlated with a decrease, so that, let's see, where was it? There was at one point, the rent growth had gone up 14%. The first quarter of 2022, the rent was up to, had increased by 16%. This is looking, starting back in 2010, to be at about $1,500 per month. Today, third quarter 2025, the multifamily, this is average rent, has decreased to be below 2% of what it was back in 2010. And I can share the slide out with everyone. Basically, now the average rent growth has declined by significantly in Durham, significantly, and it is correlated with the increase of supply of multifamily units in Durham. So I just want to, first of all, actually applaud the Durham City Council, because it is showing that there is a actual correlation. We see the numbers between supply and demand and the cost. And there was also recently an article that I read that looked at rents in our region and also nationally. And Durham was one of the few places where rents are going down. So this is, to your point, Councilmember Caballero, we do have to look at the facts. I totally understand where you're coming from. we all want to have affordable housing. This is one tool that we know that works, which is creating more supply. Not only is it important for having more supply of new units, because it means that the rents are going to go down, but also it means that we're going to have less incentive to displace existing neighborhoods and existing residents. I think that when we started this process with Code Studio, they said they're national experts on what is going to help with affordable housing. And that's what they're bringing to the table with us. And unfortunately, we've seen, or what they told us is that basically the best way to get the prices to come down is you're going to have to increase the density. You're going to have to allow developers to build more units on the same amount of land. And I also heard Holly Ficaro speak yesterday from the Durham Orange Chatham Home Builders Association, asking for the reduction in regulations and kind of what are the barriers. And I'm sorry, I didn't write this down, but she gave a data point on every month that a project is delayed, the cost that then gets carried on really to a homeowner. So the delays in our process are real. And I would say that we really need to, I don't know how much they are involved, the development and community is involved with this, but when it comes to density bonuses that are going to work, we need to really change what we're doing. And it's definitely what I heard her saying is that it's around the process and the regulation and doing things by right, being able to do things by right, having staff involved in decision making, not politicizing the process. And so we have to be realistic about who's going to be building this housing for us. And make sure that we want to do things that are really going to work and work with the development community. I see what's happening in your rezonings on the city level, and I see that the developers are doing 5% to 10% they're offering. So to your point about the 8% that we saw in Minneapolis. So we have to be realistic about the density bonuses that we come up with. We need to completely throw out what we've been doing because they haven't worked. Since I'm on the planning commission, and that goes back 15 years, more than 15 years at this point. Talking about 20, 25 years I go back with this stuff. So also around Mayor Pro Tem's point, we're not going to get to our most affordable housing without public subsidies. Because even with creating more supply, that's going to help with the middle with, 30 to 60% AMI or 60 to 80% AMI. But to get to the 0 to 30, it is absolutely going to have to be done with public money. There's no doubt about it. So I think that's another part of this is what is going to be our strategy with the UDO, in partnership with the UDO, with the city and the county, being involved in subsidizing that 0 to 30%. And I know at our work session on Monday, we are going to be approving the county $1.5 million to go into the revolving housing loan fund because we've got to get we need to get that up to $30 million in our community for it to be effective. And so we need the public sector commitment to be $5 million. So the county's stepping up to do the 1.5 million. Those are some of the ways that we know are effective at the public subsidy for this. So I just want to put that out there. in this whole conversation. And this is like really, really important. One of my questions was around the transit-oriented development areas. I think for me personally, if I had to pick an area that if we have to prioritize where to do the density bonuses, like for me, that would be, I think, the highest priority are those areas, because we want to be able to also connect people to transit, connect people to economic opportunity. I just want to hear staff's thought about that. Are there certain places that you're thinking about prioritizing the density bonuses?
So we're definitely looking at prioritizing them in what were designated as transit opportunity areas in the comprehensive plan. It's kind of similar to the strategy that we have now, where the compact neighborhoods have a significantly more substantial bonus than the rest of the county. So those would be reflected in the CX districts, CX 3, 5, 8, and 20. And obviously the opportunity to get a good bonus is, a beneficial bonus that a developer might take advantage of would probably be in the lower CX 3 and 5 than it would be in the 8 and 20.
Okay, thank you. Bo, did you want to say something?
I always want to say something. Thanks. All right, probably don't need the microphone too. Yeah, we haven't looked at, so right now, the approach is trying to give as much incentive as possible in all the districts. We haven't differentiated like a particular percentages for particular districts, like we do today, where there's a little bit of that weighting. Partially because, the approach could be, if the percentage is lower, percentage required to meet the bonus, maybe that's incentive would be used more often, and you end up getting a higher quantity of units and so we haven't decided that, because we have a higher percentage in the TOA goal, what the best approach would actually be. Because we recognize that 100%, let me correct that. We recognize that a lot of the affordable units that are currently being built aren't being built by private development. We're getting a lot. We're getting the percentages that you described earlier, but we know that it's complementary, right, to Mayor Pro Tem's point.
Yeah, I think one thing we do need to be aware of, we've seen with transit-oriented development, and that you can also often end up with, unfortunately, just market rate in those areas, and we just don't. I think that's where we really want to be careful about. Yeah. Yes.
There were conversations in the housing task force around, and I thought it was a very interesting idea, when there's a property owner who is selling and they're trying to get a very high price for their land, right? And so that then influences what comes after, right? Having a way to say, okay, if you set aside a portion of the land, and maybe the development isn't going to build the units because they either don't have the subsidy or don't have an affordable housing partner that they can rely on. But they could extend infrastructure, water, sewer, get it ready to go vertical. Would that be, to everyone's point, really, a way to incentivize, like, hey, if you do the set aside, you can get into a faster pipeline or process. And we understand that the housing's going to have to get built by not the market rate developer in this moment, but it'll be a lot cheaper because the land has been set aside and it's ready to go. And the incentive or benefit for you is that you're going to get a by right path, and you're not going to have to sink a bunch of money into a potential project that then might get voted down. Has that conversation been happening?
So there was a lot there. Let me back up.
Welcome to my brain, sorry.
We have been prioritizing the review and processing of development, whether it had a rezoning or as a density bonus, to further encourage the process. Now, whether that influenced their decision to, move forward with the project or not, I don't, we don't know the intent, but that is something that we are very aware of. And I hope to one day show, a chart that shows how much faster we were able to process those cases and make it easier to build the things that we want. The bonus, as we've imagined it, or the incentives program in the new UDO, as we've imagined it, has been providing the units. We do know that sort of the infrastructure around affordable housing, and this is picked up a little bit over the last few years, a lot due to the work at the rezoning level that you all have done. But we know that that's lacking, and that's something that we need to partner with folks that do build affordable housing and some of those nonprofits and some of the other folks that really need to be involved, because you're right, it's a completely different applicant. The trade-off there is, is it a pad? Is it the utilities? Is it the land itself? What is the threshold? And our assumption has been the units itself, but we can certainly explore that. I think that there's a lot of, I don't want to say gray area, but there's a lot of different steps in this process. And I think that would be a decision that we probably want to hear from what you think.
Yeah, I would be curious to investigate. And to your point, I understand, infrastructure versus pad versus full unit.
Yeah.
And maybe that's also built into the incentive, right? Like the full thing gets you whatever, the pad gets you this, the infrastructure, and that gets really tailored. But we do hear during our rezonings pretty consistently, like, the cost of land is a huge part of what we see at the end. And that is a part that the land use attorney, the developer, the home builder has no control over. They either buy it and at least historically in the last few years, landowners have been selling very high, and there hasn't been a lot to convince them to do anything other than that.
And related to that, I think the whole piece about making sure that we are using publicly owned land, so Durham Public Schools properties, city, county properties, to using them absolutely for affordable housing and leveraging that in whatever way possible. I think that also becomes really critical. And I know you all are supposed to come back with some study about, the publicly controlled owned land, right? Isn't that, I know I asked about it at one point, and I think Sarah said that you all were working on that, so.
Yeah, I know that we were looking at the district standards and the public land and sort of what those impacts were. Not directly for this purpose, but this is something that we can incorporate as well.
Yeah, I think
For the
that needs
housing
to
piece.
be really on everyone's radar, thinking about how do we protect the publicly owned land to be used specifically for affordable housing, workforce housing, yes.
We sure we want to do that. And with this population growth, we're going to need more schools. We're going to need more, like, land banking is for a reason, for schools. Let's not forget about that. If we build affordable housing on all these lands, we're not going to have any place for schools. So let's make sure we balance that out. Let's make sure we balance that out.
Absolutely.
And if I might, Madam Chair, to your point, I think Durham, we've made that at a value level. I mean, Willard Street exists because of that commitment in Durham. We've made a commitment to put affordable housing at 505 West Chapel Hill Street at some point. So to your point, I think that, and that's something I think that's a jewel in our crown as a city in the state. We've made a firm commitment. This is land we could flip for $1 gazillion. And we've just made a value judgment in Durham that we're committed to using this lucrative, asset for that purpose, precisely because we can't force developers to do it. And sometimes inducing developers is tricky without money. But the land itself is money as well. It's a financial, it's an asset for us. So kudos to your point, and I think we can take some pride that there are actual examples, brick and mortar examples of us doing precisely that in Durham, and I hope we'll do more. with schools as well. So we've got to, it's not a finite and infinite resource. But we've got infinite possibilities and things we want to do with it. So
Yeah,
the conversation continues, but
Absolutely.
I agree with your point.
and it's expensive. The city, the county, we've done the 300 and 500 East Main Street parking lots, and brought in, we've not only the land, but putting in the parking decks that can be used by the housing. We've done a lot of public subsidy, and it's fantastic and it's exciting. And we're going to have 300 units of affordable housing in downtown, but it's taken a lot of public investment.
Can I say I remember when I was part of leading that campaign with Durham Cam, walking with you, and I wasn't even in office yet, and colleagues
Yes.
down Main Street envisioning using that property for affordable housing, and
Yes, and it takes a long time.
it takes a long time. That was a long time ago.
That was like
I had hair.
2017. Yeah, so, yeah, thank you. Well, again, I appreciate what everyone has said, and everybody's expertise on this, and input, and staff and elected officials. And we are going to do our best to try to figure this out for sure. And it's going to be through these ongoing conversations and addressing these difficult issues. So with that, our next meeting is September 3rd. I know we're going to hear the RTP 3.0 will be on our agenda. I don't know, do you know at this point what else might be on that agenda?
I know we're gonna bring you some, I know we're bringing an item about Durham, about the Appearance Commission. Oh, sorry, I thought that was on, thought I hit it. I know we're bringing an item about the Appearance Commission. Looks like we'll have, our normal consolidated case summary, if there's cases to share. I am so sorry. Yeah, I was trying not to touch based on all of the ruckus the other night. Now I'm worried about touching anything. Yes, we're gonna have an item about the Appearance Commission, that we're gonna be sharing some proposal about the interlocal agreement with them. Consolidated cases summary, if we have cases to share. We may have an item about new UDO engagement, and, then the RTP item as well that you mentioned. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And we are adjourned.
We are all on 2 minutes.
Okay, that's right. 2 minutes behind.